said, with great power comes great responsibility. And what we are going to show you today is that if we send people and teachers from the developed countries such as Germany, France, England, the USA, and so on and so forth, to developing countries such as South America and countries from Africa, then we will get benefits from it and we will help them develop even faster. And starting, we would like to mention that the teachers that we will send will receive the same salary as they would get in their own country, from their own country. And this, we believe, it's not a disadvantage because, well, reported to the economy of the developed states, we believe it's not a major negative impact and it's quite a minor one. And these teachers, knowing English, will go to the most representative schools from each developing country. So first of all, we will mainly structure our case in three main arguments. No, thank you. First of all, the importance of the impact of the motion. Secondly, the importance of education. And thirdly, brain drain, that will be presented by my colleague today. So first of all, we believe that the impact of the motion we can see as from the teacher as an academic representative, as well as the part from which that man is a man from the developed countries who has another view on the world. But first of all, as a teacher, we believe that here we have academic preparation and both engagement with the people, with no thank you, with the children he is teaching to. And we believe that on these both sides, the teachers from the developed countries are better. First of all, academically, but before
explain me exactly how a teacher from the USA will explain to children in Africa when they don't really have an English knowledge by core.
Well, we believe that in each school that is representative, we have their English teacher. And that is why that English teacher, in the worst case, would mediate. If not, the children will already know a basic English. But before that, let's get to the academical point of view. We believe that the teachers from the developed countries are better academically because they are better prepared. They are prepared in schools and in universities from developed countries, so they have a better training because these developed countries are known for their very good educational system, and that is exactly the problem with the underdeveloped ones and the developing ones, because these ones do not have such a good academical preparation. And this is why we believe that if we send a better academically trained teacher, we will have better results at schools. Not only this, but at the engaging point of view, we believe that a teacher that has been prepared in the developed countries will be better taught and and in his training will be trained to engage better with the children, and so he will have an impact over these children. And this is very important because if he knows exactly how to engage with them, he will have a better impact on them. But both as a man from a developed country, he will represent a new way of lifestyle. He will show them that, well, yes, even though you have been you see your lives like this, well, I am from another country, from another lifestyle, and this will actually help those children see another alternative. It will help these children to develop simply by seeing other alternatives, other lifestyles, other forms of developing. Because until that point, we believe these children do not have so much contact with the developed countries. They only see that what their parents have done for over decades, and they only think that is the only alternative. But if we bring a new view, a new perspective for 12 months or an academic year, we believe that this will impact them so much that it will actually, this is the time which they need to see another lifestyle, to see another way of life, and to understand it, to see that in some countries education is really prized, to see that in some countries the human rights are very important. And after that teacher leaves, because this is what happens after 12 months, we believe that one, the teacher may actually stay in the country and choose to remain there, and in this in this case he will be moved to fully in that country, and he will continue to influence further on. and but he can also return to his country. And in this case, we believe that those 12 months have meant quite an important internship as parallel to his development, and he can actually go, and the next year another teacher can come back and continue its impact. But we believe that quite an academic year is an important time. But let's move to the second argument of team proposition today, and that is the importance of education. And we believe that it is vital for each country to have a good educational system. It is vital for each country to have this as a basic, because from education everything starts. Education is the point where we have where that actually makes a difference, because we have Brazil as an example. Brazil, when it started to invest very much in education, that is the moment in which it actually started to develop better. That is the moment in which it started to actually have a better economy, because education is the basic of everything. Education is the point that forms the future generations, and that is what we aim to. We aim to show those generations that they have an alternative. They can actually help improve their country. They can actually have an impact on the future, because they are the actual future. They are the ones who can change everything. And that is why we believe today that it is very important to impact them as most as we can, because this is actually the only way we can help the development of those countries, to assure them a higher level of education. And we have actually told you that.
Well, if we value education so much, then why do we send inexperienced college students there?
Well, we believe that this is quite a very good motive for those inexperienced ones to gain their experience, and both to help those children, because we believe that any help is a good one. Any help they can get is a good one, and as we cannot oblige someone with experience to go there, we believe that this internship will bring benefits both to the developed countries and the future teachers they will have, and both to the developing countries who will actually have the chance and opportunity to develop itself by this point. So we believe today that mainly this motion will tackle exactly the problem the developing countries have, and that is being education, and will help them develop even further. And we believe that any help is better than none. We believe that any help those children can get to see another lifestyle, to have access to higher education, is better than nothing. And that is why, mainly, we beg you to propose this motion and vote for it, because it will help both the developing and the developed world in the process. Thank you very much, and I beg you to think about these children.
Thank you very much. We now have the opening statement from Team Opposition. Theodore?
Right. Right, two major points. Firstly, we're going to rebuttal exactly what Noemi said in her speech, and we'll explain you how having an educational system and sending teachers there are actually not necessarily mutually exclusive, but it would be better if we just invest in education and we don't send unconsensually teachers there, firstly. And then, in my part of the case, I'll talk about exactly how we should stop sending aids, we should stop sending direct aids to the countries, and we should actually make them invest into their education system, because afterwards we talk about how exactly all the incentive of promoting a good education disappears in the moment that they approve this motion. So, when we ask Noemi, how exactly will we bridge the culture, we will destroy the cultural tensions between the developed and developed countries, the language, so on and so forth, she said, well, you have an English teacher there that taught the kids English. On the same token, it means that they have competent teachers there. Actually, it means that they have teachers that can actually teach the pupils something. Which actually means that they have a decent, if not over-decent, educational system at its core. Sir. Because they have teachers that can do that. Sir. No. And they have teachers that can do that. And we believe that as there is an English teacher to tell them that, as is a mathematics teacher. Therefore, we do not understand why exactly should we send an unexperienced college student, which doesn't have any experience in the field, which doesn't have any kind of technically links to the respective culture of country, but all we understood from Noemi is that it would be a great internship. Well, we have two answers to it. First, an internship is something consensual, something that I agree upon, it's something that I want to do because I want to have experience. This is not consensual. I will be sent there, whether I like it or not, whether I want to do it or not, whether I can do it or not, and those are particularly distinct things. We believe that when you are forced to be sent somewhere, your quality falls. And here are two sides. There are the people that would go there anyway, and the motion does not apply to them. We're not talking necessarily about the people that want to go there, because they would go there with your motion or without your motion. They would go there anyway and teach children in African countries and developing countries. But secondly, what we believe is that when sending them there with a decrease of quality, not only you decrease their quality as teachers in the future, you actually decrease the educational system of the whole country by sending unexperienced and unincentivized technically students, just as students second there, and we believe that to be really, really bad for the respective society. Go.
All extraordinary teachers were at the basic level unexperienced students that gained experience.
Yes, that's the problem. If we would actually believe that, then we would send only, let's say, old teachers that have all the experience and know how to breach cultural know how to break cultural breaches. But when you send those pupils that just got out of college and were technically sustained by their parents, and they were taught by a couple of children, by a couple of teachers how to actually be a teacher in their own, you're sending there a human being that's practically, you don't know its potential. We believe that that is great for developed countries because there are many places where you can develop. But in developing countries, that is really dangerous because you have way too many risks. If you really want to improve the educational system, you have to do something more. Now, when we talk about the second point that they brought, about the importance of education, we will never deny that. The education is the most important core principle of the society, period. But we don't understand how they do it with those unexperienced technically students sending them. And now, right now, in order to respond to this, we get to my first argument. What we observed during 50 years before is that when countries were generally not doing so great, we send them aid. Generally, we gave them money, invest in whatever you want, give pensions, give salaries, give whatever you want. But we changed that in the last 10 and 15 years. We said, contractually, we'll give you those money in order for you to invest in what you actually need. And what happened? We can see that in the past 10 years, the poverty rate has decreased from 2 billion people to 1 billion people, which is actually a decrease in half. We're actually seeing how educational systems, for example, in Uganda, in South Sudan, or in Myanmar, have improved consistently by actually investing there and not being given money for the teachers, so on and so forth. We can actually see how investing in different corpses of the government, for example, actually improve the whole government as a whole, because they didn't have just to pay for a thing, for example, salaries, they had to pay technically from those money to everything, meaning that an increase of quality of that respective country as a whole. And we believe that there is no distinct difference between financial aid and human resources at its core. Because human resources as well, more exactly the teachers, do the same thing. We give them on a silver plate an alternative, which we prove that it's pretty risky, but which also doesn't solve the problem. Because if we really want to help them, and we really want to help everyone, we have to do two things. First, make them invest in the education, therefore increasing the whole quality of life, therefore having actual children that can do that. As we can see lately, for example, in Uganda, the illiteracy rate has dropped over half, from 60%, from 80% illiterate to 50%, almost 50% illiterate, because we force them to invest in education. And we find that a great thing. And now we get to the second point, about what happens when you put this motion up. You get the teachers, right? And the teachers will go there. Firstly, unconsensual. Firstly, obliged, in order for me to be a teacher in the future, I have to do this. Now, what happens generally when people are obliged to do stuff? For example, taxes, or for example, I don't know, paying grades, or for example, doing everything that they don't want to do. Well, generally, although there are exceptions, and we won't deny that, they generally drop the quality of their respective work. Now, whether they like it or not, for them it might not be a big deal. But there's a distinct difference between having a teacher in your country, in your developing country, that actually has an interest to teach you something, therefore increasing radically, if not at least by some degree, the quality of the teaching that he's doing, and the difference between this and practically an uninterested youngster that just got forced to get here. We find that absolutely horrible. We find that as an analogy with the Red Cross, like obliging every single medic to go to Red Cross, whether if they want to be a medic in the future. We believe that those people, and for example the UN Peace Corps, those are volunteer people that want to do it voluntarily, therefore increasing the quality of their respective work. And we believe that that's how you get actually to the core of education, not with youngsters that have different perceptions about stuff and moreover don't have the incentive. So we beg the proposition to bring us exactly two major things. How inexperienced, unincentivized youngsters will help the education of developing country first, and secondly, how in the world can we do this only with teachers and not with actually investment in the fields. Now, to end and to sum up, inefficient at its core. If you want efficiency, then change to investment. Bad at its core. If you want to improve the education, then don't do it that way. And thirdly, unconsensual, because we find it a big problem to be forced to do something that we never wanted to and never was consented to. For all of this, we beg you to not destroy the educational system in developing countries. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. Thank you very much. We'd now like to invite the second proposition speaker, Vlad.
No, thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the very basic level, the burden of team proposition today is to show you that for the developed countries there will be no big disadvantage by implementing this measure, and also that there are some big advantages for the developing countries in the moment in which we implement. Also, we see that this is the big criteria of the match. If something really changes in the moment in which we send these teachers. What team opposition should show us today is not something that they only think and do not analyze till the end. They should show us that there are really big disadvantages for us as developed countries, and also that this really badly impacts and influences the education in developing countries. Firstly, I would like to mention that all that team opposition stated today is not mutually exclusive with what we're proposing today. We agree on the fact that we should invest in those countries. We agree on the fact that we should send aid, we should send money, we should give them money to invest however they want to invest. But in the moment in which we give them those money and also give them teachers, good teachers, as I will prove you in my speech, we consider that this is a really good thing. And I'm going to take my speech in 3 points. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the impact, secondly about education, and thirdly I'm going to bring my new method, which is the deterrent for brain drain. But firstly, let's look at the impact. And what we stated today was that this will be a big cultural impact. Why? Because we're going to send this teacher to representative schools. We agree on the fact that we won't change every single kid in these developing countries. But the fact that we do not solve all the problems is not a motive to not try to solve the majority of the problems. And we say that these representative schools are the ones that really can make the difference in developing countries. Because in the moment in which we invest in these countries, we promote the best students in developing countries. So furthermore, we promote the best educational status and capacity in those developing countries. Secondly, we believe that the period of time in which we send these teachers, 12 months, is really a good thing. Because at a very basic level, we believe that 12 months is even more than a full academic year. And things go on, because the next year another teacher will come. And this is a cycle. This is not ending at the final of the year. This is a thing that will happen for more years and for in all years for representative schools. This means that the educational process is going to further develop year by year, then the quality of education will increase.
You're not proving exactly why those countries need those youngsters there.
Okay, I'm going to get here right now. Those teachers, we should not prove that they are better than our experienced teachers in the developed countries. The sole thing that team proposition should prove you is that those teachers are better than the teachers in the underdeveloped countries. And we see that the majority of these countries don't even have universal education. There are no teachers in the majority of those countries. And in the moment in which we send one high school student, it would be better, but in the moment in which we send a postgraduate that has a license in teaching and in learning kids things like this, we believe that it is a huge advantage comparing to the almost nothing that we have in this kind of countries. Secondly, we believe that let's look at what a teacher really is. A teacher is that kind of guy who really wants to change mentalities, because a teacher doesn't just pump information. They really want to change something, and in the moment in which we give a youngster the opportunity to really change something, because all the young teachers, the majority of them really want to do something and to become important, that's the moment in which we say that these teachers are extremely important. Now, we also present that this will bring a new way of lifestyle. They will show you that at this very basic level, that we will have a new lifestyle. They will prove you how the developed countries really work. They will prove you how education has changed them. They will prove you how everything went well because of education. They will make you understand the importance, and yes, maybe in the future we won't need these teachers anymore, but at this moment we need to show them another way of life. Then this leads me to my second point about education. And we told you that education is important. Education is extremely important, and we believe that every country that is now developed and was not is here because of the educational process. It's here because we helped them to be like this. We see that the French system was implemented in Romania with the help of the French country because we needed to improve our educational system. That's the same thing as we say in the moment we send teachers from the USA to Swaziland. We say that this is the way in which we prove that the educational system that is strong might make you even stronger. And this leads me to my own argument about deterrent for brain drain. And let's look at what brain drain really is. Good students leave developing countries. Good students choose to go to the USA. Good students choose to go to Germany, not to stay in Central Africa. And we believe this is totally wrong, because there is no chance for change to appear. Because not having the best students in your country means that you need to work with mediocre quality students. And this means that at the basic level, if brain drain still exists, development is not really possible. Now, let's look at the reason for why do they leave. We believe that they leave because they think there is no hope. We believe that they leave because there is no hope for change. And this leads to a very strange circularity. In the moment in which one student leaves the country because there is no hope for change, there will be no hope for change, so the next generation will leave the country. And this is the worst circularity that might happen. Brain drain causes the impossibility for things to really happen, and we believe this is very wrong. Let's see what do we do by implementing this motion. We send teachers. We send competent teachers, as I stated, not the best in the countries, but teachers that are better than the ones that live in developing countries. And we believe that we're not only sending teachers, but we're sending a message that we're interested. The state sends the message that it's interested in those developing countries. And let's see what this message really is. No, thank you. At the very basic level, we send the message that we care about you. The message that we care, and this makes the rupture between the developing world and the developed countries smaller. And this is very important because it leads to my second point. The fact that we send you the message that we want your country to develop. And in the moment in which we make a sacrifice and send teachers to there, we'll tell your students that it is very important. And we do not oblige them, because the majority of teachers won't get work in their first years of profession. Over 65% of postgraduates don't find a job. The majority of them don't really work. And in the moment in which we send them to Africa and give them salaries, we believe that it is a huge incentive. And being back to the point of brain drain, we see that students really understand the fact that this is very important, and will have an impact on kids that furthermore will have an impact of shape on mentalities. And when mentalities are changed, that's the moment in which students will promote education, and education will change the countries. So the brain drain effect will be diminished. So at the end of the day, we've proven you that we need teachers. We do not need the best, but we need better. And because their case is not mutually exclusive, we believe that at a very basic level, we've proven you 3 basic things. The fact that those teachers are good, they'll promote education, and education will deter brain drain, which furthermore will make you understand that developing will be sometime developed. Thank you, and I'll beg you.
Thank you very much. The second speaker for the opposition will be George.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we see that team proposition forgets about one little measly thing. It's about consensus. Whether if I want to be sent there in a developing country as a teacher, I can voluntarily enroll into some of the corps that actually are sending. The problem is when we actually send unincentivized, unexperienced teachers there, that would not benefit the country on the long term. Today I'm going to begin my speech by the little rebutting on what team proposition teams has been saying, and then I'm going to go to my own part of the case, which is whether it's really fair. Now, moving on. First of all, we see the fact that in order for the mentality to change in that specific countries, the majority of the people who actually go there need to be incentivized. The majority of the people who go there, meaning the teachers, need to actually give their consensus upon this. If they do not do it, and if they are unexperienced, they cannot properly change the mentality. Moreover, so we believe today that we will be doing even more harm than we will be doing good, because they today start from the premise that the teachers in those specific countries are bad. But the fact is today that the teachers in developing countries are trained specifically to work with children in developing countries. Their training in itself is by nature for that, because they have other technology. They have certain things in the educational field that would advantage them. On the other hand, we see today the fact that in developing countries you have to break a cultural barrier, you have to break a cultural bridge. You have to go to a new educational system, and you have to adapt. And because you are inexperienced, you are not going to do it properly. And because the majority would not give the consensus upon this, we believe that the educational system in that country will be even worse. But before that,
aren't unexperienced teachers better than non-educational, like in many underdeveloped countries?
No, that's the problem today. We see the fact that the team proposition believes that there is no education whatsoever in those countries. Yet we see the fact that they want to send English-speaking teachers there. There are going to be English-speaking students because a teacher from that specific country taught them that. We see today that those countries are not doing that bad, and if they would be doing that bad, sending those unincentivized teachers would be wrong. And I'm going to actually prove you why it would be wrong, and why do we need to actually develop their educational system on the long term. Because when we send teachers in general to a new educational system, we make that educational system dependent on them. We make the educational system of that country dependent on those specific teachers. And we see that without those teachers, they are not going to properly develop. When we send them, they are not going to properly develop a new educational system that would be viable for their country. And in the absence of those teachers, that educational system would prove faulty and would prove risky for the children in that country. We today want to invest more into building a good educational system without taking the risk of creating one around those new teachers. Moreover on that, we today have witnessed the fact that team proposition has gave us the example of the French system, in which that was implemented in Romania. And we see today that it's the exact problem that we are debating right now. Because they were sent foreign teachers in there, we see that Romania has a faulty educational system. It revolves around those teachers, and it revolves around the fact that we need We need those teachers to actually teach our students. In a moment, and we need those teachers to actually teach our students. And because of that, we see today that it was implemented and it did not work. We actually created an even worse problem. But before I move on,
can you tell us one big disadvantage of implementing for both sides?
Okay. First of all, it's the fact that in developing countries, the educational system in itself, as I have said before, would not develop properly and would be detrimental on the long term. And I'm going to prove you why it's bad for developed countries in my own part of the case. But moving on, we have heard today about the brain drain. And we have heard that the fact that because of the brain drain, the children are moving away. But we see today that they still help the country economically. We would rather help the country economically. We would rather give them money as to invest in something they can. No, thank you, and they need, without actually without taking the risk, without taking that specific risk. Well, now moving on to my own part of the case. About what is fair. And we today see the fact that if we send inexperienced students, moreover unincentivized students, we see the fact that there will be remaining fewer places for the teachers who actually want to go there, for the experienced students who can actually not help develop the not help develop the children, but actually help develop the teachers themselves from the country. And we see today that consensus is a viable point and it's an important point of that process. And because we send inexperienced students there, we'll be actually filling up the places for those experienced men that might actually help the country on the long term. Moreover on that, we see today that what's this motion about? It is not about the people who want to go there. People who want to go there are already doing this. It is about the people who do not want to go there and who would be obliged to go there. And let's take a little look about the state's duty. We see today that primarily a state's duty is to protect the interests of its own citizens. And if one single college graduatee does not want to go in the developing country, we see today that the state has wronged him and that the state has wronged that individual, and that's not something that we want to do. It is not legitimate for the state to force teachers to go into a developing country if they do not want to, even if they are paying them, even if we see today that they are not going to want to go there. They wouldn't want to teach those they wouldn't want to teach those students at their full capacity. They would not give the best they can, as in the case of the ones who actually gave their consensus. Moreover on that, we see today the fact that it is not the state's duty towards another state. The state's primary duty is towards its own citizens. And because of that, we see today that when a state is going to force me, a teacher, to go into a developing country, that is not right for me. I have been wrong, and it is not the state, it is not the legitimate actor to do so. It is my choice whether I want to go there or not, and it is not the state's duty to send me there on his own will. Moreover, we see today that the current trend in developed countries is the fact that fewer and fewer teachers are actually coming out, are actually going to college to actually become teachers. And because of that, we see today that when you put this restriction on those teachers, we're actually not incentivizing the teachers, the new students, to go into teaching, because they would be required to do something they might not want to. They would be required to go to a country in which they might not have any business to do whatsoever, and stay there until they finish their training. And that's not something they might want to enroll for. Moreover, let's take a look at the individual in itself. Because when you force an individual to go there, he is not prepared for that. He's not prepared for that environment. Moreover, we are forcing him away from his family just because he chose the career of a teacher. Just because I choose to be a medic, that does not mean I necessarily choose to go into developing countries to help them. I do not necessarily subject myself to the psychological harm of it. And because of all this, we today believe that teachers should not be forced to go there, because it brings disadvantages both for developed and developing countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now offer the floor to third speaker for the proposition oration.
Is there any way we can watch the count on the screen? No? Okay.
May I start? Thank you very much. At the end of my speech, your choice will be a very easy one. I will talk in 4 main points. First of all, I will see what the burden of both teams was and how they tackled it. Secondly, I will address the question of are the teachers capable of improving the educational system in those countries. Thirdly, I will talk about whether they are enough or not to boost their educational system and thus the whole system of those countries. And lastly, I will talk about the brain drain and the message that developed countries send. Let's start with the burden. We had to prove you today that we'll have a big advantage in those underdeveloped countries and no major disadvantage in our developed countries, the countries you are sending teachers from. The opposition team could have proven us that these kind of things are A, not efficient for those underdeveloped countries, which they tried to do, and B, that it would bring a major disadvantage for our developed countries that they didn't tackle. They didn't try to show us in any single point that we would have a major disadvantage in the countries that we would send the teachers from. So basically all that we have to do at the end of the day is to prove to you that we would have an advantage in the underdeveloped countries, because that's the only thing we're talking about today. So let's go to my second point, and that is, are the teachers capable of doing it? And I will prove to you that they are capable of doing it through 3 main points. First of all, I will talk about the incentive they have. Secondly, I will talk about their efficiency. And thirdly, I will talk about why it's our duty to send them there. Let's start with the incentive. What the opposition side tells us today is that, well, they won't have an incentive because right now they can go there if they want to. So why oblige them? Why do this while they can still go? Well, I'm telling you here that what we propose is that we will pay their salary when they go there. Right now, if they try, just a second. Right now, if they want to go to Central Africa, for example, in their first year of teaching, they have to pay a massive price. They have to go there and be paid by those countries and those schools. The American schools, the USA, for example, will not pay their first year of teaching right now if they choose to go there. That's why most of the teachers do not go there. Over 80% of postgraduates say that they would rather go to those underdeveloped countries if they would get payment, if they would get their salaries. So they are not incentivized right now because they would have to pay a price that they cannot afford. But they would want to go there as long as they would have their salary. Please.
Look, on the same token, many people, even if they would get a salary, would not get a job because they feel compliance in their life. How is that legitimate to oblige them to work?
Well, that's exactly the point. Most postgraduate teachers do not teach in their first few years. They do not teach in developed countries because there are better teachers in developed countries. But in those underdeveloped countries that you are talking about today, they could teach. They could be able to teach. And they would have the incentive because they would be paid to do that. Right now, they do not go there, even if they could, we agree, because they cannot afford it, not because they do not want to go there. So basically, we would have an incentive because of their salary. Moreover, we are telling you that they will have a major incentive because they are teaching, because they are doing their job. If they wouldn't go there, they would probably stay on the bench for a year or two until they get a job in the developed countries. But by going there, we offer them a job from their very first time, and that means that they will do their very best to prove that they are able, just a second, they are able to teach, that they are capable teachers, and that is a major incentive.
What happens when someone does not want to go to that specific country yet still wants to be a teacher? Do we oblige him or not?
Well, I've just told you that most of them want to go because if they wouldn't go, they would not teach, because in the developed countries there are better teachers. They would just stay there for a few years until they get a job. So most of them want to go there. Of course, that if there is a certain country that the teacher would not go to, he can choose a different one. There are lots of underdeveloped countries postgraduate teachers can choose from. We will not oblige them to go in a country they specifically don't want to choose. We don't believe that that is a valid question. No, thank you. So, at this point of my speech, I've proven you that they would be incentivized, that that consensus point does not stand, because these teachers would have a major incentive. So let's go to the efficiency. Will they be efficient? What the opposition team brings us here is that, well, they are postgraduates. How can they be efficient? What we are telling you is that they're missing a massive point, because we're not comparing them with the experienced teachers from the developed countries. We are comparing them with the teachers from underdeveloped countries that do not get high-level education, that may be able to teach a basic level of English to a class of students, but do not have high-level education. While these postgraduates, even though they are inexperienced, have that kind of high-level education and are surely more capable than those untrained teachers from the underdeveloped countries. Do you deny that?
When experienced teachers from developed countries have problems breaking the cultural bridges in developing countries, how do you propose the new teachers will break them?
Firstly, you had to prove that those experienced teachers have any problems in going over those bridges. You didn't do that in any single point. That was just a statement. So what we're telling you is that even though the inexperienced teachers are worse than the experienced teachers in the developed countries, they are way better than the alternative we had in the underdeveloped countries. So they would be more efficient. And I think we've proven you that through our first main argument, which has proven why both from an academic point of view and an engagement point of view, these postgraduates are able to do it, are able to teach the students.
Yeah.
And that leads me to my third point, and that is it our duty to send them? Is it the state's duty, the developed state's duty, to do that thing? And we are saying that we have benefited from those underdeveloped countries for centuries. We have benefited economically. We have benefited with people, with the brain drain phenomenon. And we are telling you that we have a moral duty to help them back. We have a moral duty to help them. And that leads me to my third point, and that is, are these teachers enough? What they're telling us is that, well, why not just not give them money? What we're telling you is that we can give them money. They are not mutually exclusive. We can give them money and teachers, and we think that that would help them more. We do not see why we wouldn't send those teachers along with the money they would need to improve their system even more. We have shown you that those teachers would be efficient, and that was our sole burden for today. So the last point of my speech will be the brain drain and the message that we'd send. And the message would be, hey, underdeveloped countries, we want you to develop. We want a developed world. And that is the most important thing that we would get. And through education, that is achievable. And by sending these better teachers, we think that we would boost their educational system and thus their whole country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now have our third speaker for the opposition, Octavian.
May I start?
I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
Okay. What they have to prove today is that each and every student from a developing country that wants to study in an institution that teaches him how to be a teacher has to go, forced by the state, into a developing country. Even if he does not want to leave his country and go to a country with worse conditions, without far away from his family and from his relatives. That's why they have to prove today. And that will be a great benefit from developing countries. So in order to prove that this is highly inefficient, I'll have three major clash points. First of all, I'll speak about lowering the quality of the education in the developing countries. So, second of all, I'll speak about the educational system in the developed countries and how it will be harmed. And third of all, I'll speak about our duty for the developing countries and how we can actually help them, not in this way. Now, starting with the first point. In the status quo, we have proven you that right now there are teachers that go there voluntarily. But how are those teachers? First of all, those teachers go there because they want, and they have a really willing to teach those children. They have love and they have passion towards doing that. They have knowledge. No, thank you. They have knowledge about the issues in these countries. They take studies in the culture of those countries, because we know there are cultural clashes. So if you send a young teacher from the United States to a Muslim country, there will be problems to fit with the moral laws of a Muslim country, for example. Moreover, they have the experience.
Sir.
And no, thank you, because they are older teachers and they want to do that. They are paid what they do there. Because, for example, there are programs like the UN Peace Corps that does that on the money of the UN and sends teachers that help them. What will happens if we approve the motion? Basically, we'll have a great mass of unexperienced and unwilling teachers that will go there. And that means that the experienced teacher will have less place on that market. There will be less experienced teachers from the developed countries to go there, and more unexperienced teachers. And this is the actual harm that will happen there. We'll have less good teachers there. Now, following this, why we should speak a bit about those undergrad students that go there. What happens with them? For example, they say that they will get the same amount of money, which means that they will not have a financial incentive, because they can get the same money in their country. But with what price? The following price. They'll stay away from their family. They'll stay away from their friends. They'll have no social life. And this will impact psychologically, they'll have a great impact on their psychology, which means the following. Their quality of the education will decrease as they will not feel comfortable, and they will not have the actual incentive to help. No, thank you, to help those people, which means they'll do worse and worse education. Moreover, no, thank you. You said that you will send those children only to the most representative schools there. Okay, because in those places there are professors that know English. If there are teachers that know English there, it means that there are good teachers there. Good teachers with experience that know the culture of that country, which means that will not actually boost anything in those countries as we got only to those schools. Moreover, they started from the premise that all of their teachers from developing countries are worse than our unexperienced teachers, which we find bad, because there are good teachers there, and we can do something, and things happen with those teachers. Now, no, thank you. I'll go to my second point, the point of developing countries and what will happen in the developing countries. We see the following. Right now, there is a trend that people don't want to go to university where they are taught how to be a professor. And we find this a bit harmful for our society right now. If we impose this law, which will force each and every student who wants to go there to go to a country, Africa, basically what will happen is that less and less people will want to go there. Yes, Naomi?
But don't you think this will be their chance to do what they really want and actually help children and change mentalities?
That's not what they really want. They want to be a teacher in their country. They want to have an adventure in an undeveloped country, in a risky country, in a country that away from their families and so on and so forth. They maybe want to be a teacher in a university in that country. Now, going on. Based on this point, we see the fact there will be less and less teachers even in the developed countries, and this will actually harm the country. And we find it moreover unfair for those people that are in the developed country to be forced to do that without their will. Moreover, you said that when they'll get back from after those 12 months, there will be better teachers. But we find this false, because they'll learn how to be a teacher not only in their country, but in another country with other cultural differences, another style of education, and which means that they'll apply all of these things in their own countries in a bad way, and this will actually affect them. And moreover, giving them the same salary will not incentivize them. Now, going on, and so my third point. The third point is, how do we help the developing world? We have proven you that it's not exactly our duty to help those countries, because basically everything in this world happens on this basis. I give you some help, and I get something back. But the fact is that if we give help to a developing country, we don't get actually a help back. We are different societies. But even though you do not accept this premise, even though you do not accept this, I'll prove you that there is another way to help developing countries. Because what you want to help with the developing countries is to be, now thank you, self-sustaining, is to get on their own feet as Germany and USA are. How do you do that? It's not by continuously giving them funds and teachers and so on and so forth, and not letting them develop their own. But what we'll do is help them develop their economy, the healthcare system and education on other ways. We give them funds, and we basically let them develop their own system. And we got a good example. The example of Myanmar. In Myanmar, no thank you. In Myanmar, what happened? Till now, we're continuously sending them funds and so on and so forth. And they're not developing. They're one of the most undeveloped countries in Asia. But what happened is that now they got to a democracy. And what happened? They didn't want to get our funds anymore. And right now, they got the biggest GDP growth in the entire Asia. Which proves us that there is a better way to do things there. Because if we continuously send teachers from our countries in the developing world, well, the impact will be that they will not have any incentive to create their own teachers. They will rely their entire system on our teachers that we send. So they have no incentive to create their own teachers. And in the future, they will still rely on our teachers, which we find bad. As you said, in Brazil, just because the country developed economically on their own feet, basically the country got a good educational system, and that's what we want to do. Now, thank you. Moreover, you brought the example of Romania. What happened in Romania is that because we had French teachers from the beginning after 1989, right, we have the second most inefficient educational system in the entire Europe. Moreover, the point of brain drain is easily explained. If you want people that are intelligent from developing countries to remain in your country, you have to develop country on all of the fields, economically and so on and so forth. And that's how you can do from our model, not basing on relying on other countries. Moreover, the message that you are saying, the message that we are actually saying, sending to our teacher is that you have bad teachers, we have good teachers, and you have to do what we are telling you to do. And this is actually bad because it will create more cultural tensions between this country, and this is actually harmful. You'll give those countries the impression that they are helpless and they will not do anything in the future. But what we want to do is that help them. Moreover, at the end of the day, I've proven you that we'll actually lower the educational system, quality of the educational system in the developing countries. Second, because we will send out unexperienced and bad teachers that don't have experience even in their own country to do things there. And this is bad. Moreover, we'll harm even the developed countries, that they don't get any benefit. And third of all, that this is not the way to help the developing countries. So for all of these reasons, we believe that you should not approve the motion.
Thank you. The reply speaker for team opposition will be Theodore.
Although I know those guys for some time, like this team at my right, I never knew that they really believed that everything that is developing has no chance of surviving, has no chance of development, has no chance whatsoever, and they wait for the great bastions of developing, like the USA and Germany and France, to come and save them. Ladies and gentlemen, we find that flawed. We find that every single country can do on its own and can improve on its own without us interfering with their culture. And that's why you always promote it. We promote it as a team, the idea of them their own, satisfying their need of their children, their cultural need of their children, because there is a distinct difference, for example, between USA and how they teach, and Uganda and how they teach. And those things, as they didn't try to prove in any point, do not link together because there is a cultural bridge at its core. So, in my reply, I'll have three main points. We'll talk about incentive, we'll talk about efficiency, we'll talk about the message. The incentive. We told you a basic thing. Generally, when you are forced to do stuff, you do them as less quality. If you do them the same, that means that you could have done voluntarily as well. But we don't talk here about those that can do it anyway, with this motion, without motion. We're talking about those that whether there is an incentive of salary, whether there is an incentive of having a great career in my life, they would still go against this because they have ideological, technically, problems with this. For example, many teachers would rather, and many medics, for example, would do their job inside their country rather than living under any circumstance, because that's how they were. No matter how much of a decent life I get, no matter how much of a salary I get, those things remain with me, and those things are what guide me through my career. And that's the main difference with teachers. Because teachers generally say that if I would have done it for the money, then I would have been something else. I would have been a lawyer or an accountant. But they don't do it for the money. They don't care about your money. All they care is that to teach and to send a message. The distinct difference, as they would like to say, is that they won't deliver the same message if they are not given the right conditions and the right environment. And it would be even harder to give this message in the moment that there would be an obvious cultural breach or religious breach or ideological breach or whatever breach you want. That they never try to rebuttal, they never try to contradict us in this. And we essentially, by the incentive point, we demonstrated to you that there will be a decrease in incentive of the teachers there. Therefore, we won the first point. Efficiency. We told you that those countries have to be self-sustaining. But we also told you that in the moment when those teachers come, the whole educational system is based on those respective teachers. They would do, everything they do is right and everything they don't do is right as well because they know better, because they are from a developed country, because they are the great bastion of democracy and so on and so forth. Which you find that flawed for every single culture that believes that. We find that they should not be dependent on persons, they should not be even dependent on other governments, but they should adapt and they should survive on their own. Also, when we talk about the teachers and the efficiency of the teachers, it will decrease dramatically. Because there is one difference to teach in USA, one difference to teach in other place. And when you go to teach to the other place and come back, you practically gain nothing. You gain some primary educational system that can be taught in every single moment. Now let's talk about the message. They say that we send the message of we want to help you. We say that we send the message of you are an incompetent agent that cannot educate your children. And we find that flawed. We find that a real problem in today's society. But we are not also sending this message toward the developing countries. To our own population, we send the thing that we can do whatever we want with your career. We can ordain you to do whatever you want, and we will do anything as long as we believe it's good, as long as we don't care what you think. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe there are great teachers and greater teachers, but that doesn't mean that they are different from a country from another, and just efficiency is a problem here. Every single teacher is adaptive to its culture and to its children. For all this, we beg you to propose.
And to sum up, the position of the proposition will be Vlad. Any reply?
Sir, what we're proposing today is not saving but helping. And in the moment in which some people need help, we believe that it is our duty of the country that have profited for too long, it's our duty to help. And I always believed that education is both mathematics and arts. And today I'm going to prove you why we win this match on both mathematical level and artistic level. Let's start with the artistic level. We believe that education doesn't exist per se, and in the majority of countries in developing countries, education might not exist like in Swaziland or other countries, or is extremely lesser. It's not so good. And in the moment in which we want to help those people, this is the moment in which we need to do something. And our unexperienced teachers are better than nothing. So in the majority of the cases, those unexperienced teachers will really make the difference, because one is better than none. That's the point of our team today. We also state that those teachers will have a huge incentive to go because of two big reasons. Firstly, because, well, the majority of them won't really work in some years, like many years sometimes. And we believe that teachers really want money because they need to survive. And in the moment in which we offer them money to go for 12 months, which is not a human life, in the moment we offer them a huge salary to go there, that's the moment in which they have a huge financial incentive to really do that. Secondly, we believe that professors, teachers are the ones that change mentalities, as we've stated. These are the ones that when they want to become teachers, they assume that they want to change the society. And in the moment in which the society needs some change in one place, it's the duty and the way of how teaching really is to go and help them. Now, they talked about cultural problems, but what we stated is that we're going to go to representative schools, to schools that really understand and want to understand what the developed world really is. And as I've stated in my speech, we're going to make, because of the message sent, this rupture between states lesser. And that's the moment in which developing might become developed. Now, my third point is going to be about brain drain. As I've stated, brain drain is bad because brain drain doesn't allow this state to become better. Brain drain is that phenomenon which takes your best students and lets you live with the mediocre one. And in the moment in which good teachers come, good students remain, good teachers will appear in that countries, and the education will be boosted. Now, this is the artistic level. Let's get to mathematics, because team opposition should have proven us today big advantages, and they tried on their last op speaker. But they didn't really fulfill their duty, because the only thing that they proposed was not mutually exclusive. Do they need help? Maybe we'll give them help. Don't they need? That's not really a big deal because teachers are not financial aid. This is our responsibility. I've stated that profited from these countries. The sole thing that they stated was the disadvantages of choice, the fact that you cannot choose. As I have stated, 90% of the teachers would like to go, but don't have enough money. They don't have enough money. In the moment in which you give them financial incentive and both the moral incentive, we believe that 99% will go. Maybe there are 1 or 2 teachers that won't, but that's not the point of this debate. This debate that we've stated from our first speaker is about big advantages for the developing world, which we both sides want to save. Also, they stated that these systems are not incompetent. This is a misportrayal of what we've stated. We stated help, and they need help. They beg for help. They want aid. They want things. And in the moment in which they beg for help, and we can offer them, and we can profit from these things further, we believe that at the end of the day, it's such an easy choice. Please propose and save as much as you can.